Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Attention! You're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Ah, yes, my friends, conservative, not bitter indeed, hour 2 of today's program. In the first hour, man, I wish, as I was thinking about this between the first and second hours, there's still so much more I want to talk about with Scott Pelley and his commencement address, and maybe we'll get back to it. I don't know. We'll see how this hour comes together, but there's other things that I want to get to. There's other things that I want to get to. There's other things that I have to get to, and I want to make sure that I do it, and I've done this long enough. It's almost been 10 years now, believe it or not. 10 years on August 10th. But I've done this long enough to know that if I don't do it at the beginning of the hour, time quickly dwindles as we get into the program, so I'm going to do this. I want to, but I don't. So if you were listening last hour, I've got other things to say about that. I was still breaking down Scott Pelley's speech, and I don't know if and when we'll get back to that or not, but that would be nice. But I just feel obligated here to talk about something that is important, and that's what I'm going to do this hour. That's, in particular here, what's been revealed. Project Veritas. They have video. They sat down, somehow got a meeting with David Hogg, who's one of the vice chairs. Do you know that there's like 5? So there's multiple. I think there's 5 vice chairs of the DNC. So I guess you have, that sounds like the way that a leftist would run something. 5 multiple vice chairs, DNC, of the DNC. David Hogg is one of those vice chairs. He is on camera with Project Veritas telling us who was running the White House, basically. And there's also an ex-Biden staffer who's also on video who confirms this. Biden wasn't running this country. This is, in fact, what we talked about on today's Todd Talk briefly, but there's so much more to get into than what I can cover in a 60-second Todd Talk. So I want to talk about this hour. And who knows, we might get back to what I was talking about previously with the commencement address by Scott Pelley. Anyway, before I do that, though, my friends, let me remind you, I should tell you this. This is an announcement. Our website, redwhiteandbrand.com. Redwhiteandbrand.com is now officially online. You can go there, check it out. We will be improving or changing some things on it, but it is good enough. It's one of the things that I have learned as a small business owner and entrepreneur. The enemy of the good, my friends, is often perfection. It's often perfection. There's a book, Good to Great, that kind of addresses this. Perfection can sometimes inhibit us from just putting something that's ready for market out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. This, by the way, the same thing with this show. I remember when I started this program, when I was first just podcasting, and I didn't have a certain time that I had to be on air, right? If I didn't have a time that I had to be talking in the microphone, it was really easy to say, I'm not quite ready yet. Let me do 10 more minutes of research. Let me look into this. And, you can't do everything. You got to do your best with the time that you have available, the resources you have available, and make the most of it. Make the most of it. And I remember when I started the radio, broadcasting live in the mornings in Indianapolis, I remember at 6:0 whatever it was, 6:05, 6:03, some time. I remember, hey, like there's no more. I don't get 1 second more. It's just time to rock and roll here. That's an important concept in business. You do something, and you can always improve upon it. But oftentimes we sit back. But the site's good. The site is there, but the ability to completely purchase there is not completely functioning yet. But you can search, find products, and of course, we can help you get what you need. Our team will help you get what you need from there. redwhiteandbrand.com is where you can go to find products that you'll want your logo on. This ranges from apparel. You can have embroidered hats, sweatshirts, polos, whatever, screen print stuff. You can have promotional products. You can have awards. We're working on some stuff here that's pretty cool. Some really neat things already since we launched the Red, White, and Brand company here just a couple of weeks ago. It reopened because we came to the end of our non-compete when we sold the previous business. Anyway, we're here to help you. redwhiteandbrand.com. Promo code Todd, by the way. Promo code Todd's going to save you 10% on your first purchase. Check out the site. Reach out to us if you need help, if you find some items, if you're looking for something. We'll take it from there, get you what you need. redwhiteandbrand.com. Again, redwhiteandbrand.com. Promo code Todd saves you 10%, my friends, on your first purchase. All right, so let's set this up. We've got Project Veritas. This was the group that James O'Keefe was involved. He started this. Now he's not involved. He's got his own thing. And now there's other folks that are running Project Veritas, but they were able to get a meeting with David Hogg, and there's another individual that's going to be on camera, an ex-Biden staffer named Deterian Jones. And I want to talk about this. So basically, if you've not seen any Project Veritas videos or any of James O'Keefe's videos, these are meetings. Oftentimes they happen over lunch or dinner. And James O'Keefe's, I guess, MO. Now, he, again, was the founder of Project Veritas, not currently there, but he's got his own thing now as well. I've noticed that James O'Keefe typically, again, there's always exceptions, but as a general rule, there would be a young lady who apparently is gone out to dinner. I don't know if they, if it's just under the guise of it being just a regular date, if it's to, some sort of a business meeting, but whatever. A lot of times there are the men involved, and I've noticed that these ladies pay the slightest bit of attention to these men and ask them questions. These men will tell them anything, absolutely anything. And a lot of these guys, you can tell, think highly of themselves. They think, I've done a lot of things for the Democrat Party or whoever it is that's being exposed. The world needs, I can't talk about it. I've done some really important things, but I'll tell you because you're paying me some attention. Probably finds her attractive, whatever. They start talking, and here we are. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I'm just saying that that's oftentimes how this works out. And it's usually over dinner in some public restaurant or whatever. So David Hogg it looks like it's over dinner, but it's not. It doesn't. This one seems to be more of a meeting environment or whatever, but he's sitting down with someone who is an undercover journalist with Project Veritas. Now, I will say there are people who don't believe this. There are people who think that this is far too convenient for David Hogg to just, during this time when people are talking about Biden's auto pin and questioning, that there's this stupid book by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson that they could have told us about when it actually mattered, when the guy was running for president, when he was running the country, when his running mate was moving to run the country, when his running mate was certainly aware when she was running for president, she was aware of the true cognitive decline of this president. They acted like he was fine and sharp and, they never even really acknowledged. The only thing that they've really acknowledged was Biden's age. They want to make it about his age instead of about his cognitive abilities. For obvious reasons. But anyway, so we've all been talking about this. There's some people who think this is far too convenient. David Hogg is just, blowing smoke here. But in this hidden video expose, whatever, which that always makes me think of Impractical Jokers. Oz loved that episode when Joe Gatto, who's gotten himself in some trouble, by the way, but Joe Gatto was telling a group of bikers that it's just an expose. Just an expose, as he was asking them questions about their gang as he... It's Impractical Jokers. You have to understand it to appreciate, have seen it to appreciate it. But it brings back memories when I say the word expose. So there's an expose happening here. And some people think that this is just far too convenient. Other people think this is exactly what we've been talking about happening. Now, I think that this is real. But I would say even if it's not real, even if this isn't true, even if they're targeting this particular person for whatever reason, maybe they want to get back at this guy. I mean, you can take this as deep as you want to take it. You can be as cynical and just question this to the nth degree, and maybe that's right to do here. I tend to think that this is a little bit more rooted in should be reality and should be taken at face value cautiously, because who knows? Who knows if this is, they're not as trying to throw this guy under the bus. I don't know. But they've said, look, the chief of staff for Dr. Jill Biden was the one that was effectively running the White House. Anthony Bernal is his name. And nobody knows this person. Nobody knows anything about this person. This person wasn't on any ticket. This person wasn't involved in any of the debates, wasn't asked questions, wasn't vetted by the media and the public. But this person, according to David Hogg, according to Deterian Jones, an ex-Biden staffer, they certainly say that he was running the White House. So I want you to hear this. Again, it's one of those expose videos. I think the audio is good enough. We'll see. I mean, that I've listened to it, but sometimes I notice something with as I'm sharing it with you that I realize I gotta fill in some gaps on where words might be hard to understand. Whatever the case, this is a clip. This was tweeted out, by the way, by libs of TikTok, and I just want you to listen to this. You'll hear David Hogg. You'll hear I think some of the Project Veritas journalists, and I think you also hear Deterian Jones on this as well. So that being said, listen to this blockbuster.
Yes, nice to meet you. Yeah.
So it's a video.
Off the record, of course.
This is David Hogg.
Foundational question for me is how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew, or few people knew about Biden, the president of the United States?
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue was the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress you enough.
Jill Biden's chief of staff, had an enormous amount of power.
Jill Biden?
Jill Biden's chief of staff.
That was
Now, if you can't make that out, they're saying Jill Biden, not Joe Biden. Jill Biden's chief of staff had an extraordinary amount of power. You'll hear another person on Biden's staff, former White House Office of Digital Strategy staffer named Deterian Jones, chip in here and say, yeah, I mean, he's got some bad things. I'm going to back this up a little bit, but he's got some really bad things to say about the chief of staff for Dr. Jill. Make sure I get that right. Dr. Jill Biden's chief of staff. He's Anthony Bernal, by the way. He's the one that they said had this power, and they were afraid of him. I mean, listen to this.
Jill Biden?
Jill Biden's chief of staff.
That was an open secret at that point. I would avoid him. He was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony Bernal.
So now they're showing a picture of Anthony Bernal. So he said he was scary. He said, I would avoid him. That's Deterian Jones. Look, he's a guy in the White House. He's Dr. Jill's chief of staff. Had a lot of power. I tried to avoid him. I was scared of the guy. So the journalist says, I've never seen him before. That's where this picks back up.
Never seen him.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But
So he's saying, again, it's a little hard to make out. He said, exactly. When the journalist said, I've never seen him before, he said, exactly. Nobody knows who this guy is. They liked it this way. He was a Wizard of Oz, shadowy type of figure. He held an enormous amount of power. So I can't stress to you enough how much power he had at the White House. And nobody knows who this guy is. This is how they wanted it. There were, in fact, people, or at least one person, according to these folks, who were pulling the strings of the Biden presidency, making decisions on behalf of the president, had an enormous amount of power, not held accountable by the American people, not even known by the American people. Back this up just a little bit here. And then play this again for you to hear.
I've never seen him.
exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But he wielded an enormous amount of power, and I can't stress to you how much power he had at the White House.
So this is the promotional video. I think that's the end of the audio. Yeah. So he says, I can't stress to you how much power this man had at the White House. I was scared of this guy. I would try to avoid him. This guy was a shadowy Wizard of Oz type figure. The man behind the curtain, if you've seen that classic, The Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The general public wouldn't know how this man looked, but he wielded an enormous amount of power. I can't stress to you enough how much power he had at the White House. So, this is a problem. Keep in mind that this was in the midst of, well, at least part of this administration was in the midst of a re-election campaign that turned into an election campaign for Kamala. And in that campaign, they were accusing Trump of being the real existential threat to our quote-unquote democracy. But friends, let me ask you this. Is it more of a threat to democracy to call the media fake news? Is it more of a threat to democracy to insist that our borders be secure? Is it more of a threat to democracy to insist that our laws on illegal immigration, in particular laws referring to or dealing with deportations, is it more of a threat to our democracy to be focused on those issues and those things? Or is it more of a threat to our quote-unquote democracy to elect a guy that's actually not making any of the decisions, when there's actually other people who are making decisions, people that, according to these two, and again, they may be lying, I don't know. Maybe they're jockeying for power in the Democrat Party. Maybe they're trying to throw Anthony Bernal under the bus. Maybe they see him as a threat to what they want to accomplish. I don't know. Maybe it's legit. Maybe this is what was really happening. But again, from the outside looking in, it's clear that somebody was calling the shots in the White House, and that person would not have been named Joseph Robinette Bribery. Simply would not have been the case. Now, this leads us back to this discussion of Biden's auto pen, right? So Biden's auto pen is a part of this as well, because I'm going to read the headline here from redstate.com. This is from a couple of days ago. I've had this in the stack of stuff. Biden's auto pen scandal grows as watchdog finds no evidence former president knew about signed orders. So in other words, there's a watchdog that's been investigating the use of the auto pen in the Biden administration. I mean, you think about just what we know now as a matter of fact. What is now no longer disputed by people in the media, people on the left. Remember, they used to dispute. They used to say Biden is mentally on top of it. This guy is as quick-witted and keeps you on your toes, and just that they would look puzzled if you even raised any concern, any question about the overall fitness of the president of the United States, Joseph Robinette Bribery, former president, thankfully, of the United States. They would act like you were trying to attack him because of his age. They would act as though, you can't say that. You can't question his cognition because you're not a doctor. I mean, on and on this goes. All that stuff is now out the window, as we've talked about recently. To me, this is one of the biggest stories, and it involves a lot. You remember yesterday on the program, I think it was yesterday, I played a clip from Jake Tapper, who, again, do not buy his... Listen, I don't do boycotts. I guess I'm boycotting this book. This book written by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. It's not that I don't care about what's in the book. My commitment to you is anything that I find about this story, I'm going to relay to you so you don't have to buy the stupid book to hear it. Anything that's reported, I've been sharing with you that comes from the book, that comes from these interviews. But we do not need to financially reward these clowns for hiding this information. They'll tell you that they didn't know it. They'll act as though they just found this out, right after the campaign or whatever, right after the election in recent months. But my friends, you cannot be serious. Perhaps they found some things out, but I don't believe them for a second. I don't believe them for a millisecond. They had no curiosity when Biden was president, had no curiosity as to his mental acuity, his ability to make decisions, his ability to communicate, his ability to think clearly and lead this great nation. They didn't have any curiosity. They act as though that there were no warning signs, no concerns, whatever. I'll get into that more as the time allows in the next segment. I'm simply out of time here, my friends. That's what we'll talk about next here. We'll talk about this auto pen and the larger problem that this David Hogg video can lead us to. Friends, in the meantime, do you know where your money goes after you spend it? I don't mean do you know where your money goes and you're budgeting. I mean, after it's out of your control, do you know what's being done with your money? Now, to a certain extent, you can say, Todd, that's none of my business. And to a certain extent, I would say, yes, I agree. But if that money is being used to fund causes and politicians and movements that you stand absolutely opposed to, I would say, I think we need to rethink that. And that's precisely why we have Freedom Marketplace. Freedom Marketplace is a free directory of businesses that align with your conservative values. These businesses have made a promise to not support leftist candidates or causes. It's free. Check it out. freedommarketplace.net is where you can go. freedommarketplace.net. I have to take a break, my friends. Quick time out. Back in just a minute.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, my friends. Talking here about this auto pen controversy, which arose from our discussion related to the hidden camera video, Project Veritas, exposing, making known a video between, one of their journalists and David Hogg, who's one of the many vice chairs of the DNC. Tyrion Jones, an ex-Biden staffer, was there as well. They're saying, look, Jill Biden's chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, was the one that wielded a lot of power. Now, they didn't say, at least it leads to this larger discussion about who was making decisions. And then when you look at the auto pen, that's a real big problem because we all know Jake Tapper may have pretended like he didn't know, that there was no evidence that there was anything funny going on in the Biden administration. But we all know what was going on there. The guy was totally incapable. We talked about this. I mean, the things that these guys want to get away with. Jake Tapper either has to tell his viewers, I am the world's most idiotic and unobservant journalist in the history of journalism, or I deliberately covered up the story about Joe Biden's ability to, well, act in his role as president of the United States. Them's the options, Jake. Which is it? Either way, you shouldn't be listened to. I think it's the latter. I think that you absolutely knew. And I think that makes it even worse. Listen, I'm all for capitalism. But I think if you have a story as a journalist and you keep it from the American people until after the story has no impact on the consequences of decisions that we're making, I think that what you're doing is to then make money, to try to make money off of something that you candidly should have been sharing with us as part of your journalistic efforts each and every night on your stupid little program there. I think that you should not... Now, you're free to sell your book. I'm not saying there should be a law, but I think nobody should hand over a penny for that. I think it's a pretty bodacious and wild thing to ask for it, to be quite honest. And to act as though you had no idea, especially with these headlines like I just read at Red State. Biden's auto pen scandal grows as watchdog finds no evidence former president knew about the signed orders. So it's clear that the Biden administration had a guy at the top, the guy at the head of the administration, Joseph Robinette Bribery, who wasn't functioning. The book has made it clear if there was any doubt. We knew this before, but now the left, they've stopped even defending Biden. There's no point in defending Biden. There's no successor named Biden. Biden's name is candidly an albatross around the Democrat Party's neck, and there's really nothing worth saving from their vantage point. There's no loss, there's no risk here in actually telling the people what happened. The only risk is when they ask, why didn't you tell us before? Which I think is the number one question we should be asking. Why are you just now admitting to this? Because now I think that it's so obvious, and they know that there's going to continue to be things released, and people are going to become more and more aware of just how incapable Biden was, and they're going to look at the media, and the media is going to try to save face and say, look, they hid it from us too. We're finding out about this. As soon as we got the message, we told you about it, right? As soon as we got the message, we told you about it. We offered our stupid little book for sale, and you could go buy it. We tried to get this out. They lied to us. That's where this is. But friends, this is just scratching the surface of where this can go. Obviously, if he was not cognitive, who was making the decisions? Who was calling the shots? That's in and of itself a big enough problem. I remember talking about this during the campaign. I remember disagreeing with Vivek Ramaswamy about this. He said, let's not talk about this because we don't want Biden to be replaced by Kamala. And I say, well, maybe we don't want Biden replaced by Kamala. Maybe we don't want her to be running against an incumbent president at that particular point in time. But call me crazy, but I care about this country, and I'd like to know that there's someone running it. There's some bad people out there that are doing some bad things. Who's running the country? Who are we to be holding accountable? And that's what was happening, my friends. Things were getting done. Things were being signed by an auto pen. Now that we know Biden was not cognitively well, it raises even more questions as to who was in charge of the auto pen. I'm going to read this to you, really, at least a part of this, really quickly to you. A watchdog representing energy workers is raising red flags after conducting a review of significant executive orders signed by AutoPen under the previous administration and finding, quote, no evidence, listen to that, no evidence that President Biden was aware of them. So they don't have any evidence. They've got these signed executive orders. The auto pen was used. You can use the auto pen, but in order to use the auto pen, the president has to give acknowledgement that he's in agreement with what the auto pen is signing. There's no evidence that that took place, according to this watchdog. It's not startling, really. It's not startling. I mean, in a sane world, it's startling, but this is precisely who we knew we've been dealing with all along. The startling revelations come as an official at the Department of Justice has reviewed, quote, potential gatekeepers controlling the White House during Biden's tenure. This is, again, an article at redstate.com, Rusty Weiss. Insiders have revealed a covert Politburo, oh, that's nice, was running the country, and the cover-up of his cognitive decline is being unfurled in public at an accelerated pace. The non-profit organization Power the Future penned a letter to House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Chairman James Comer, he's a representative from the great state of Kentucky, outlining their findings and demanding a more thorough investigation. Is it Commonwealth of Kentucky? I think it is Commonwealth. Anyway, they want to know who was wantonly signing orders while Biden was safely tucked away for nap time. Reading this article at redstate.com. Power the Future remains concerned that key policies of major economic and national security significance directed by the White House during the Biden administration may have been undertaken without presidential awareness and approval, but perhaps instead by a small coterie of staff. The letter reads, according to Fox News Digital. It is just, they, the left, cry a threat to our democracy, and they have someone who's unelected running the show. They have AOC and Bernie Sanders jetting around on private jets, which I personally have no problem with. I have a problem with it because they demonize people who use private jets, but of course they've got an exception. Their work is so important, they get a free pass. Bernie Sanders actually said this. It's just mind-boggling. He said they have a lot of places to be, and the only way to get there efficiently is with private jets, as though there's not reasons that other people use private jets for business purposes when they have meetings and have to get places quickly and their time is valuable. What is this guy talking about? The level of arrogance is palpable. But as he and AOC are jetting around the country in their private jets, as they're doing that, they're saying that they're fighting the oligarchy, the rule of the few. And this literally was what was happening in the previous administration. Where was their desire to fight the oligarchy that was acting as president of the United States as part of that scandal, this auto pen scandal? Where was the curiosity then? Where was the desire to fight the oligarchy, the rule of the few, especially the unelected few, the unknown, the unnamed few that we're coming to grips with here? Anthony Bernal perhaps being one of those, chief of staff for Dr. Jill Biden. The group, going back to the article here, analyzed multiple executive orders involving climate policy dating back to 2021, and according to Executive Director Daniel Turner, found no evidence that Biden ordered it, directed it, or was even aware it was happening in his name. You'll remember a story that was told by Speaker Mike Johnson when he talked to the president, when it was President Biden, and he mentioned an executive order that Biden had signed, and Biden said that he didn't sign it or the order didn't do what Speaker Johnson said it did or some such thing, making it clear to Speaker Johnson that Biden wasn't aware, didn't know what he was doing, that sort of thing. The auto pen scandal is evidence that these green executive orders are invalid and the instigators should be thoroughly investigated by the Department of Justice for violating the trust of the American people and perpetuating a great fraud on the nation, asserted Turner, the executive director. I got to take a time out here in a moment, my friends. In the meantime, take care of your heart's health, my friends. You can do that in a very inexpensive, easy, safe way. That's by taking Solti. It's an all-natural supplement designed, and science has proven, my friends, that it has lowered cholesterol. For many people, may be able to lower your cholesterol as well. Solti.com is where you can find it. I take the product. I think you should think about it as well. Solti.com, Soltea, Solti.com. Promo code Todd Saves you 50% on your first 3 months and gets you free shipping. Salty.com, promo code Todd. Quick timeout, back in a minute.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, my friends. Last segment of the week. I want to get to one other part of this story that was in the stack of stuff from earlier in the week. It's related to what we've been talking about. This was at townhall.com. Matt Vespa. It says, headline here, Liz Warren. For those of you who don't know, this is Pocahontas, which again, I have to tell you, I can say that because it has been documented by evidence, by science itself, that I am, in fact, no joking, this is the true. I find this fascinating, but I'm the 13th great-grandson of Pocahontas. I am the self-appointed spokesperson of the family, and I am here to tell you we do not have a problem with Liz Warren, Elizabeth Warren, being called Pocahontas because you're not trying to degrade Pocahontas's family name or anything like that. What you're trying to do when you say that is point out the ridiculousness of how Liz Warren, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, how she thinks and the level of identity politics that she is engaged in her life. Well, she has been for a long time, not even before her days as senator from Massachusetts. So let's look at this really quickly. What is going on with this Joe Biden auto pen fiasco? The Justice Department is investigating whether some of the pardons issued by Biden were legal. We've learned that some of the executive orders pertaining to green energy might not be legal, but now we're talking about pardons because remember, these were issued in the final days of office, which let me say really quickly, this wasn't just, according to the previous article I just shared with you, this wasn't just something that happened in the final weeks and months of Biden's presidency. Now, if Biden wasn't in charge of the auto pen during his time in office, this came at the very end, these pardons. So these could immediately, potentially, be revoked because they could be considered unauthorized if the president didn't know about them. But some of these things date back into the early days of his presidency, back in 2021, which would have been his first year. As I've told you for a long time, his cognitive condition was in major trouble in 2020 during the campaign, during his entire presidency. This is not something that just happened here at the end of his presidency. Anyway, the Justice Department is investigating whether some of the pardons issued by Biden were legal, as we're learning more about the depths of the cover-up regarding his mental health. It could be his overall health, with the latest revelation that he has stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer, which does not materialize after 100 to 200 days. It takes years. So they've hidden all this stuff from us: the prostate, the cancer diagnosis, his lack of mental fitness to be commander-in-chief, and now this is leading us to the next step. If he wasn't mentally fit, and now they're using the auto pen, did he even know what was going on? Did he authorize it? If he didn't, then we got a major problem, or they have a major problem, because that's required. That's required in order to use the auto pen. That's what, reading now back to the article here, that's why the auto pen is now the subject of an investigation. DOJ official Ed Martin said it's legal to use, but both parties must be cogent. Good luck proving that, by the way. Back to the article here. Biden was obviously not. Martin is wasting no time in his new job, helming a weaponization task force and working as a pardon attorney. He said a senior Democratic whistleblower had come forward, adding that Anita Dunn, Bob Bauer, and Ron Klain were the top three. So these are people that are Democrats, leftists, that were according to reports, a Democratic whistleblower said that there are people, that Anita Dunn, Bob Bauer, Ron Klain were, I guess, people that were maybe using the auto pen. Allegedly, we'll see. I mean, that's what's being said. I don't know. Yet, on Jesse Waters' show, investor David Sachs, who is also the Trump administration's crypto czar, alleged that Elizabeth Warren, a.k.a. Pocahontas, was now involved in the circus. He later explained how Warren is the crypto community's archenemy. So that's, there's a soundbite here. I don't have time. I've just got about a minute left. So we don't know. We don't know if it's one person, if it's 10 people, whether it's a silent coup, an oligarchy. We know that it's a threat to our democracy. The hypocrisy is rich here. The left is the group. The left is the greatest threat domestically that we face in this country. They will do. I've shared this with you. You know this. I shared with you the Seinfeld-Newman strategy to go from, which is built upon a Seinfeld episode that I'd seen. And the Seinfeld-Newman strategy is that the left will do whatever it takes, as long as it takes them, so long as it stops Trump, initially from being president, but now that he is president, from being able to implement his agenda. Likewise, I didn't say this at the time, but they would also do whatever they could, as long as it took them, so long as it implemented the left's agenda. And so if that meant that they had to bypass Biden along the way to issue pardons or whatever else had to happen, sign executive orders about climate policy or some such thing, they were willing to do it. I know that they're willing to do it. The question is, did they? Because all of this stuff could be crumbling down very quickly, and it could have ramifications, big ramifications, especially on these pardons. Anyway, I'm out of time for the week, my friends. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful weekend. SDG.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on chumbacasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at chumbacasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's chumbacasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.